Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is Robin at One Paper Street. Sorry, I'm a little late today. I was actually having some trouble with my microphone, so I was just trying to get everything set up and get things working. But I guess when this is your first stream in a while, you sometimes have a few tech challenges that you're working through. But anyways, I am really excited to be with you today. I've got some really fun projects planned. And I'm going to be on stream for a little while. So even if you have to pop out and then come back, you're always more than welcome. But today, what we're going to do is we are going to work with paper scraps. So I think paper scraps are a really fun way to kind of just create projects without getting too much in your head about it. I sometimes find that when I am making a card and when I'm working on something where I'm starting from scratch, I'm thinking about everything. I'm thinking about the dyes I want to use, the colors I want to use, the design. And sometimes I just find myself being like so overwhelmed by the design. So I actually keep a box of just random scraps that I get from previous projects. And then when my box gets kind of full, I sort of just dump everything out and pick some things that I want to put in a future project. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to just kind of find some things in this box that could be fun to make and fun to put on a card. So I kind of want to do a Christmas card because we have a lot of, festivities coming up. So a holiday card is kind of where my mind's at. And you can see that I kind of have some things that I've started, but then, didn't really know what I wanted to use it for. I actually used these trees on another project last year for Christmas. But I will kind of tell you that the things that have caught my eye earlier on today when I was looking at some of this stuff is these. I thought it would be super fun. I've been working on another Christmas card where I've been making some snowflakes, and I kind of had this blue paper, and I thought, man, this blue paper is perfect for the snowflakes that I'm making for this card that I don't have done yet. But how fun would it be to just, I already had this blue piece of paper kind of cut because I was planning to use it for another card and then change my mind. So I thought, how fun would it be to kind of just use this iridescent blue paper as a snowflake and use it as like the background for a card. And then I almost sort of imagined like putting a piece of white paper underneath it, maybe doing some ink blending underneath it, maybe doing a shaker underneath it. So I don't really know, but this piece of paper here is kind of like the one that is really kind of inspiring me. And I have two, so I was almost thinking maybe one should be ink blended and one should be a shaker card. So we'll see how this shakes out. Ba-doom, and we'll just get started and kind of play along. So the other thing that I have in here is I've got a bunch of frames. So I don't know, maybe we'll have a frame in our future. I'll leave that out as something that I kind of like. And then I've got some sentiments. I don't think I have too many Christmas sentiments, so I might actually have to make one. But I've got a lot of other random things. I've got more Christmas trees, lots and lots and lots of Christmas trees. Um, I've got this sweet Christmas wishes from a previous card that I made for a very good friend of ours. Um, and then let's see. I just think this is fun, so we're going to set that aside. I started making some fall cards, so I've got some extras there. Um, oh, and then these, oh, they're so fragile. I have to be careful not to bend it. I just love these. So I am going to see. I'm going to turn off the autofocus because I feel like it's it was a little blurry at times. So I'm going to set this aside too. I truthfully don't know if I'm going to use these because I don't know if they're going to go well with the snowflakes, but I do love them, so I'm going to set them aside. And then, oh, all right. And then I have this. It says, sending warm wishes this holiday season. That's another sentiment that I have left over. So let's see if we've got anything else here that we might be able to use. Let me see. Not quite big enough for the background, so I'm not going to worry about those. Oh, and these are really fun. These are Magic Slider inserts. I really like Magic Slider cards. Maybe next time we do a scrap session, I will grab those and use them. Oh, this is really nice. This is some cardstock that has double-sided sticky tape on the back. So that double-sided sticky tape is so good. I didn't want to waste it. Okay. Now, the point of today's conversation is to show you that you don't have to be like overly, you don't have to pre-plan for every project you make. I do enjoy planning. For anybody who knows me, it is something that is a strong suit of mine. I do enjoy it, but sometimes I almost get wrapped up in it where I do too much planning and then something goes awry and it's like, oh no, what do I do? I have to start over. We are going to use this card base for sure, so I'm going to set that aside. But sometimes I just do too much planning and I forget to just kind of, relax a little bit and enjoy the process. So, the point of doing this particular session and this particular live is that it's okay to not plan for everything, and it's okay to just kind of fly by the seat of your pants sometimes. And maybe you're somebody who doesn't like to do that all the time, but doing it every now and then is not a bad thing. I have this little rainbow that I love. I colored it a while ago and just never used it. So, all right. I'm going to say that we've got a good base in terms of what we can use. So I'm just going to get the rest of these items out of the way. And, oh, I really like that. So I'm going to just leave that there as well. And so those are the core items that we're going to use. Get this little star out of the way, although it's adorable. And okay, so we know that we want to use a card base, which is most likely going to be this white one here. We also know that we've got this frame, which is super fun, and I'm a huge fan. And then we have this snowflake. So I don't want to just put it on like this. I do want to make it a little bit smaller. But I really, really, really want to put some color inside the snowflake. And so I've got some swatches. I don't really have like a swatch book where I keep things. I kind of just have this like old Q-tip box and I keep all my swatches in there. And I've got two types of designs. I've got a solid design so I can see it. And then I've got kind of a detailed design to see what it looks like on white paper. So I think because we're using so much blue that I almost want to change it up and not use blue for the inside. So let's see what we got. Probably going to stay away from the pinks and the oranges. Kind of reminds me of football colors. Maybe that, well, I said I'd stay away from pink, but I actually kind of like that one. Probably not gray because that's probably a little too mute. But you know what? We'll stick it over to the side and then we'll decide later. We've got a little spun sugar. Ooh, I love cracked pistachio. No matter how many times I use it, I still love it. Sky blue, probably not the play. Oh, these are archival inks instead of oxides. For those of you who are not familiar with them, Distress Oxide inks are a little bit easier to blend than archival inks because they dry slower. All right. Ooh, I really like this purple. And I know I said I didn't want to do blue on blue, but I actually really like that blue. And I really like the lavender. What will we choose? Okay. So one of the nice things about being able to do ink blending is that you really can kind of just make it your own. So the colors that we're talking about here, and again, this is kind of just an improv card, but the colors we're talking about here are Spun Sugar, Tattered Rose, and Hickory Smoke, Dusty Concord, and Cracked Pistachio. I think we're going to have to do Cracked Pistachio because I'm a huge fan. And then I'm thinking Spun Sugar and Tumbled Glass. So I am going to grab a few brushes and I'm going to grab my my ink. And also, I think I'm going to zoom in a little bit because it looks like you might not be able to see it as clearly as I can see it. So hopefully this helps a little. That focus is not helpful though. Okay, so I am just off to the side real quick, grabbing my tumbled glass, my cracked pistachio, and what was the other one? Spun sugar. Which, if I'm being honest, these are three colors that I tend to lean towards, tend to gravitate towards these colors. So all right, now if I wanted to get extra fancy, then I could use a stencil and I could stencil these in, or I could, if I wanted to at some point, I could actually use the card base, like the design you see, and I could use that as a stencil in the future if I wanted to. But what I actually want to do is right here directly on the card base, I want to make a stencil. Or not make a stencil, I'm sorry. I want to blend right there directly on it. And I kind of just want to like almost like do it in a triangle like this, like a little circular triangle. So I'm going to just kind of estimate with a pencil. Just gonna, I'm just putting it in the center. There's like no real rhyme or reason around how I'm doing this, but I'm just marking it a little bit so that I know where to go around it. And then I know I'm marking it. I don't want to see the pencil marks later. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab a little tiny eraser called a kneaded eraser because you can't see it on, you probably can't see the pencil on the card base from the camera, but I can see it and it's a little darker than I maybe wanted. So I'm just going to grab this kneaded eraser and I'm just going to take a little bit of the graphite off. And that will help me when I go to ink blend. I won't be able to take the pencil marks off after that. So I just want to make them a little smaller, make them a little less noticeable. And I didn't actually get this eraser for paper crafting. I mostly got it for drawing and when I was trying to learn how to draw. And yeah, just sort of worked out for this purpose too. I also use it a lot for watercolor painting. But okay, so put my pencil away because I'm done with that. I have a really small desk, so if I leave too many things out, I start to starts to get a little cluttered. Okay, so I've got a bunch of brushes here. These are multi-purpose brushes. I don't have one brush that I use for one specific color, but I am going to take the smaller brushes because this is a relatively small design. And I'm going to start with, I think this is how I want it to look. So I'm going to put the green on top, the spun sugar on the bottom, and the tumbled glass to the left. And I'm going to move this other stuff out of the way just so that I can have a little clean space. And then I'm going to start. So I've got my cracked pistachio, and once I do dip a brush in, I am going to keep it with that color. So I'm not going to like double dip because then that starts to get messy. You start to just like get colors bleeding into each other and it doesn't look as nice as you maybe want it to. So if you're blending the whole sheet, you can start from the outside and you can work your way down so that you get a nice clean blend. But I'm not super worried about that for this one, just because again, we're just trying to go with the flow and see how it works out. And the colors that you use more if you have Distress Oxide inks or really any inks, you'll probably find that they are a little harder to work in than maybe the colors that you don't use so much. All right, so I'm going to set that one to the side. I'm going to set the brush right on top. And then the spun sugar, I want to use that one near the bottom. I am going to blend that in a little bit. And then I am going to work in the other one. Another thing I could have done, but I didn't think to, is I could have taped off the edges of this card base so that I kept them clean and white. Probably something I would do next time, but I did not do it here. But if you want like this frame to be completely white, you can mask it so that you don't risk getting any of the colors there. All right, this is a very little brush for the blue. And then I'm just kind of blending the colors together. Doesn't need to be perfect. And blue and pink together obviously make a nice purple. And then the cracked pistachio and the blue almost kind of make like a tealish color a little bit. And then I'm going to just put a little bit more pink into it. And then I think we might be good. One of the reasons I like using blues and pinks and cracked pistachio for this is because I just really like non-traditional colors on Christmas cards and holiday cards in general. So I just think it's fun. I think it's a nice, relatively easy way to mix things up and kind of create a little dimension to your design. I think the traditional colors always look beautiful and they're just they're really great, but sometimes it's just nice to mix it up a little, have a little change, and so that's what I try to do sometimes. All right, I'm gonna get these inks out of the way. We're done with those for right now. And then I'm gonna take my card base and I'm just gonna lay it over top and see how it looks. So if you can see it here, you'll see that I just have kind of like this really cool rainbow color. And this is also where I can come in and like add something if I want. So say I take a look at this and I think, oh, I would really like there to be a little bit more blue. So I can come here and I can apply a little bit more blue right where I think it might be missing some. And it doesn't have to be like super well blended. You can have kind of a little bit more like noticeable transition if that's what you're looking for. It really just depends on what you're looking for. So I've got my colors. They look pretty cool. I really like how this looks, and I think that we are ready to trim up this little, whoops, sorry, out of camera. I really think that we are in a place where we're ready to cut out the blue, cardstock. So I am gonna, sorry, I just bumped my camera. I am going to grab this trimmer here. And normally I use a different trimmer. I actually, if I thought about it more, I would probably actually just throw away this trimmer entirely because I don't like it. But I don't have a lot of space on my desk right now, so we're gonna give it a try. And if we end up not liking it, then we're gonna throw it away and try another one. All right. So what I want to do is I want to just trim a little bit off of this, probably about a quarter all the way around. So my best guess is that here at this black mark is probably where the quarter is. So I'm just gonna like hold it right here. I'm gonna hold this down and I'm gonna just trim. Now that worked out fine. The reason I don't love this particular trimmer is because it just isn't my favorite. It's hard to measure where exactly I need it to be. And actually, I think I might have already messed this up. That's okay. So what I actually wanted to do was not a quarter. I wanted to do a little less than that because I wanted to, whoops, sorry. I wanted to leave this card base. But actually, you know, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe, again, we will go with the flow. Maybe I'll take a quarter off here. Maybe I'll take a fraction of a quarter off here and we will try it. Sorry, I am not in camera. But this like leaves like little shreds of paper and sometimes it just doesn't look so good. All right, so we've got this and I think, yeah, I'm just taking a look at it, trying to figure out what I want to do. So here you can see that it looks pretty good where it's at. You can see that it's mostly centered. It's a little low to the bottom, but for the most part, it looks good. I'm planning on putting the sentiment here. The other thing I could do is I could turn it over like this and I could put the sentiment here and that would be fine. But what I am curious about is I've got some ink over here. So if I want to center it, like if I decide I want to trim the edges here, then I can't really do that without exposing the parts of the ink that I got on there that maybe I don't want to be on there. So I think, let me take a look at this because we wanted to use the frame, I almost feel like I do want to trim it, and then I'll find a way to cover that up later. So, and this is all part of the creative process. If you're someone who likes to do card making, you've likely gone through this same process in your head. So I feel like it's always easier to take off more later than it is to add it back. So I always err on the side of caution. I always take off a little less than what I think I need, and then I measure it, and then I come back later and add it if or not add it, but take off more if I need to. The other thing I like to do, especially with this trimmer, is it kind of leaves the edge a little like it leaves the edge, I don't know, it's not a perfect square when I use this trimmer, which is another reason why I don't usually use it, but again, we're on screen and the other one's too big. So I trimmed a little bit off, so I'm going to see what it looks like here. And you can see I have a little bit, but I might actually, if I grab my kneaded eraser, I might actually be able to remove some of that. So I'm gonna come over here and just gonna take my eraser, and you can actually see there's a little bit of ink coming off of the card base, and it's now on my eraser because the eraser just kind of grabs onto whatever's there and it just pulls it upwards. So it's not harming the paper. And if you had a really dark ink color, this would not work, but this is a pretty light color, so I'm able to kind of just work with it. All right. Okay. So let me just test that out. Yep, that'll work. Okay. And if you find that you still have a little bit more on, another tip is that you can just take a regular eraser and just kind of run it across if you want to. Again, it's not meant for that purpose. It may work, it may not, depending on what kind of paper you're using and depending on what color ink you're using. But this is a pretty light color and it took it off without any problems. All right. Another pro tip for you, if you're someone who likes to use dyes a lot, this dye, for example, has some like kind of rigid, just kind of like scraps on it. So I'll take a little sandpaper and I'll just rub the sandpaper along the edges, and any like residue that's still on there from the die cutting process, it just takes it right off. So now instead of having like kind of like, I don't know, just scraps on the end of it, it looks smooth and it looks like it was like designed like that. So looks like it's freshly cut without all the excessive leftover residue from your die machine. I don't change my die plates very often, so sometimes when I use a new die or when I just kind of run something through, the paper gets imprinted in the plastic of my die plates. So this just kind of helps get rid of it. And then you don't just have like flecks of paper coming off your card. So you'll see that I just have a few marks on my sandpaper. I always use the same piece of sandpaper when I work on my cards so that I don't get any drying graphite or anything like that on it, but I'm just going to get rid of some of this dust. All right. And now you've seen behind the scenes. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to just make sure that it falls within the frame. which I actually think I just need to take a smidge more off so that it fits inside that frame. And then we'll go ahead and put the frame on. And there's never any hurry when you're making cards. I always just like to use it as like a way to relax and decompress. So if ever you're thinking that you're moving too slow or you're seeing people on Instagram do it faster than you, just remember that those people are putting things on Instagram and they're speeding up the video because Instagram favors 90 seconds or less. I don't think I've ever seen anybody make a card in less than 90 seconds. So if you see that and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I did it faster like everybody else is just using video editing software, myself included. If I need to put something on Instagram, I have to edit it and make it shorter because Instagram favors shorter videos. So don't be too hard on yourself if you see it. It's totally okay that you take as much time as you need to do your card making. All right, so I am going to use this adhesive. I got it from Hobby Lobby because I was out of the normal adhesive that I use. But basically, I am just going to put it on the back of my frame, put it on the edges, and then put a little bit around the actual frame itself. A lot of people use tape runners. I think tape runners are great. They're not really for me. I think I end up using way more tape than what I need if I do that. And they're more expensive, so I just tend to not use them too frequently. But I'll usually just cut up some adhesive like I'm doing here when I need it to be a little smaller. And then I will just put it around the corners. So all of these things that I'll usually edit out in a video, like putting on tape and peeling the backs off the tape, well, now you know. This is what I do. This is how the magic happens. I would say that whenever I make a card, it probably takes me at least an hour to make it from start to finish. And that's like planning the design and picking out the materials and putting everything together. I would say at least an hour from start to finish for everything. So even when you have like a YouTube video that you're doing, or even when you have kind of a how-to that you're planning, it might take you, you know, 6-10 minutes to make the card, but you're planning the design, you're picking out the supplies, you're potentially buying more supplies if you don't have what you need on hand. And all those things take time. So whenever you're looking at how long it takes you, if that's something that you worry about or you compare yourself to others, one, I would probably tell you not to compare yourself to others because everybody's different and everybody's creative process is different. But if you are comparing yourself to others and you see everybody doing it very quickly, I would say don't be too hard on yourself. All right, so whenever I'm putting something together like this, or I'm adding a design to a card base, the one thing I usually suggest is that you stand up and kind of just look at it from overhead so that you have a good idea of whether or not you're kind of lined up with where you want to be. So just going to lay that down like so. And then, see, I'm a little, even when I stood over it, I'm still a little off, but that's okay. I'll just, I'll take my scissors and just lightly trim that area so that you can't see it. Okay. So I keep a trash can very close by because I have a lot of trash as I do this. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to add some more tape. And I'm going to be pretty liberal with my tape here. I want to put some tape around the corners. And then I want to put some tape here. And then the last place I want to put some tape is right here. So let those sides stay down. And then actually, I'm going to put some right here as well. So that should be enough tape. So I'll grab my tweezers and just peel off the tape. All right. And then I want to make sure I do this right, because if you've ever experienced how it feels to put your card on your card base and then realize your card is upside down, that's just really unpleasant. Okay. So again, I'm just hovering right over my card base, and I like to put it at an angle so that I can see it as I'm putting it up against my light. My light is off to the side, which is why I'm looking at it from an angle like this. But I will look at it like that. And then you can kind of see here that you've got this nice kind of pastel color. You've got pink, blue, cracked pistachio up there. And you can kind of see that everything just looks really nice. So I'm super happy with this as my card base, but I want to add a sentiment. Now this one here is the one that was in my stash, but it's actually a little too long. And if I do it like this, I just don't I don't like the cutoff sections of my snowflake being there. I'd like it to be a card that kind of opens up like this. So I'm not going to use that sentiment. I think I'm going to use a different one. And I think the sentiment that I'm going to use is going to be, let me see. I kind of like this one, this Let It Snow. And there's these little snowflakes as well, but I don't know if I'm going to use those. So I think I'd like to use this. I don't think I can use it directly on the card because that is going to be, yeah, it just won't fit. But I think what I could do is I could maybe put a banner on it. So I could use that. Let me just check a couple other stamps real quick. I have, you can't see it on camera, but I've got a few Christmas stamp sets that I have been meaning to use more. So I think I would really like a stamp to just like go in the middle here, but I need to find a smaller stamp. Ooh, I think I found one. Hold on. Sorry, my stamp book is like massive and I just won't fit on camera. So this one says holiday greetings. So what if, let's see if it fits. If this fits, oh no, it's just a smidge too big. What if I do it like this? Is it still too big? Yeah. Darn, too big. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think I have a small enough Christmas greeting to fit in there, but I do actually like that holiday greetings. So maybe what I'll do is I'll find a different way to use it. So I think what I'll do is I'll find a way to add the sentiment right here. Aw, hey WikiWoo, thanks so much. I'm glad you like my YouTube videos and I really appreciate you stopping by the stream. So thank you so much. All right. So we've got our holiday greeting stamp. We know that's the one we're going to use. I've also got this gray. So again, just kind of my going back to my little stash of stuff that I had in my my pile of like just little random items. I have that, and then I also have these. So what I could do is well, I don't really want white on white on white. So I'm kind of tempted to use this gray. Oh, one of my lights just went out, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. One of the things I could do is I could use this gray, and I could almost just kind of take it across like that. So that might be what we do. Just taking a look at my scraps to see if there's anything else. I really like this iridescent. I don't know if you can see it. Hey, Rachel's Cards. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's good to see you. So I'm just kind of taking a peek in here to see if there's anything fun that I can use with my sentiment. Oh, I've got this nice big one. That would actually be really good because then I could trim it. But I really wanted something with a little bit more color in it. Oh, the other thing I have is I have this fun little sentiment, like this little banner. So I'll have to use that at some point, but all right. So this is also really fun. Oh man, I have so much scraps in here. I'm just making a total mess. All right. I also really, really like this glittery paper. So at some point we'll have to find something to do. Maybe with our next stream we'll have to find something to do with glittery paper. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do, I'm just thinking out loud here. I think what I'm gonna do, if this will fit, is I'm going to use the gray cardstock for my greeting, and then if I have enough pink scrap paper, I will make a border. So all right. So I think I'm going to use some black for my sentiment. And I really like, this is kind of odd, I feel like, because it's not very common, but I really like using my black soot, which is my Distress Oxide ink for like sentiments, because it takes a little while to dry. And so you can double stamp and you don't get like any messes really, and you don't have any problems with the stamp as you do that. And I always double stamp using my Misti. And really, if I have to stamp something and not use my Misti, I probably just won't be stamping because it's so easy to use. I just can't I can't live without it. And I'm gonna just kind of stick this right here. And I don't really need it to be like, I want it to stay in one place, but if it doesn't, that's okay, because I'm really not gonna need much of it. So I'm just gonna put that right there. Can everybody see it? And then I'm gonna stick my holiday greetings right here, kind of close to the edge. So I don't need it to be perfect, but I do want to make sure that it is level, that it's like even. So if it's even, which it looks like it is, and honestly, if it's not, that's not a big deal. But I'm gonna press down and just pick it up. So now you'll see it over here. Then I'm gonna grab my black set, I'm gonna stamp it, and then oh, my light keeps turning off. And I usually just keep a rag handy so I can like wipe my hands on it. You can tell this rag has seen some stuff. It's pretty dirty, but okay, so I'll just stamp it again, and I'm just taking my rag and I'm wiping off my Misti so that I don't transfer any ink I don't in places where I don't want it to be. And then I just am stamping it twice to get a slightly better impression. And this like O seems to not want to hold ink. This is an older stamp, so it doesn't hold ink quite as well as I'd probably want it to, but you can see holiday greetings. And if I wanted to emboss it, I also could with the Distress Oxide ink. You can emboss it with embossing ink too, but this is slow drying ink, so it usually is fine for that. And then the other thing I normally do is I've got this like little Lawn Fawn stamp chamois is what it's called, but I don't have water on it currently, so I can't use it to wipe off my stamp, but I usually use it for that. I'll just set my stamp to the side and I'll wash it when the stream's over. And I usually just clean my Misti as I go, because otherwise it just gets kind of gross and stuff dries on it, and then I don't know, I try to take care of it because it's one of my favorite tools. All right, so now we'll grab the trimmer, and I'll set the trimmer down, and I just want to kind of like get as close to the words as I can. So I can sometimes gauge it by like looking at the words and where they fall in comparison to this little line right here. And I just try to make it match like that on all four sides. So I'll do the same thing over here. I'll close it. I'll move my letters a little closer to the edge to where I think it needs to be. And I'll just kind of hold it down and press, cross my fingers. So this one, I don't know if you can see, but we got a little bit of a swoop because the paper didn't stay. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just clean that up. And then I am going to do the same thing over here. Again, I just try to keep my paper in the same place. Try to hold it down a little bit better this time. You'll see that it took. And then lastly, the side. So I'm always getting the trimmer out of the way, the little like thing that you slide over, because that can really throw off like your depth perception. And actually, I think the bottom is already where it needs to be. So yeah, so this is another reason I'm not a huge fan of the trimmer, is because it started to cut it, but then it almost just sort of folded it over rather than making a clean cut. So I didn't want to fussy cut this, but I'm going to. And I'm just going to cross my fingers. I feel like no matter how many times I cut something like this, it always feels a little nerve-wracking to just do it by hand. So but this is an experimental card, so the other thing I think is pretty cool about card making and just being creative in general is that if you don't like something, you don't have to keep it, or you can change it, but I think I'm pretty happy with this. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you guys is if you don't, if you have a hard time like working with straight lines and cutting straight lines, the other thing that you can do, just to show you all, is that you can actually put down a cutting board of some kind and then like grab a ruler and an X-Acto knife. So if you're someone who kind of struggles to make straight lines, like as I look at this, I realize this isn't straight at all. You can actually just kind of grab your ruler. And here, let me zoom in a little bit. So yeah, hopefully this makes it a little bit better. But you can zoom in. And I really, really love having a clear ruler because I think that makes things a little bit easier to see. But you can kind of just, oh, sorry, my microphone's like in the camera. But you can kind of just use your ruler to figure out what that straight line should be. And it's kind of hard with this because I don't really know where my point of reference is, but we're going to guess. And then you just put your X-Acto knife right up against your ruler. And that can be a really great way to get a straight line. And I'm probably a little closer to my stamp than I need to be, but that's okay. We'll do the same thing here on this side. And this is actually a little bit better than the way that I was doing it earlier. But you'll see that I'm really close to my stamp because that's just, once I started that, I didn't want to change it. All right. So do that there. And then make sure you guys can still see me. It's so good to be back streaming. I've missed you all. I've been away from streaming for a little bit. I was streaming on Twitch for a while, but I've had a little bit more time recently to do card making to do markets and things like that. And so I'm really happy to be back on stream now that I've freed up some time in other areas. So I'm really glad that you all are here with me, and I'm glad that you're hopefully having a good night. Hopefully you're enjoying the stream, and yeah, happy to be here. Okay, so the last thing I said I wanted to do was I wanted to use some of that glittery paper. So I am going to just, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to tape it now so that it's a little bit easier to trim. And I'm going to put it on this side, and I'm going to put some tape on this side. And that's because I'm putting it on glittery paper. Glittery paper is a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult to have things stick to and have it stay. So we're going to do this, and I'm going to just do that to make sure. Oops, sorry. Need to zoom out a little bit so that you can all see that. Okay, so I've got my holiday greetings, and I've got it lined up on 3 sides, but I need it to be lined up on the fourth side. So all I'm doing here is I'm just measuring how much space is there, and then that's gonna kind of be like my point of reference. So I want it to like cut right about here. So again, this ruler is amazing. It's by far my favorite ruler. So where I want it to line up is actually going to be right here where this little mark is. So again, I'm putting it on an angle because that's like my viewpoint. You might do something different for you, but this is what I need. Okay, I'm gonna grab my X-Acto knife again. I'm just gonna, whoop. I'm actually gonna do 2 because glitter paper is thicker than normal paper. And then you'll see I've got my little border, and now I can add it to my card base. So I could put it here if I wanted. I could put it here. I could put it up high. I could put it in the middle, down low. I think I want it here. I think I want it here. So I'm going to take some 3D adhesive dots. Maybe I'll take the squares since this is a square design. Grab some squares. Running out of squares. And I will flip it over and I'll put it on. And again, I'm going to stand up just to make sure it's nice and even. And I'm going to do that. And that looks good. The last thing I probably want to do is I'm going to like add some, either some Nuvo drops or like some sequin. Sequin could be fun. If I add Nuvo drops, they're going to be the clear drops. And I can't leave them on the table because they're, I like to warm them up just a smidge before I use them. So I actually need to stick them in my pocket to warm them up. But if I were to do sequin, let's just take a look at this. I actually really like this sequin. I would probably use like, oh, I think oh my goodness, it's just going everywhere. Yeah. I like this sequin. but I kind of think I want Nuvo drops. So my sequin is getting everywhere, and I'll have to clean that. But I'm just over here making a mess. Don't mind me. But I think what I want is Nuvo drops. So what I like to do with Nuvo drops, so as they're kind of heating up, I'll tell you. What I like to do with Nuvo drops is I like to kind of put them in groups of 3 or groups of 2. Um, I think that helps to make it look a little bit more balanced. And I think it helps to like be a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So if I were going to add Nuvo drops on this card, for example, I would probably put them like one right here, maybe like one right here-ish, and then one over here. And then I'd probably put a couple like over here or even over here just to kind of balance it out a little bit. So let's check them out. So what I normally do is I'll grab a piece of scrap paper. Let me just find something that I don't care about that I can use. This little scrap paper looks good. And then after it's warmed up a little bit, normally I let it warm up a little bit more than this, but I'm not going to wait forever. I'll usually just kind of put it on my paper, test it, make sure it's okay, and then I'll put it on my card. So this was just the clear one, and it looks a little iridescent, but it really does truly dry clear. It's Morning Dew is the color. And then I'll add one over here. Sorry, so that you guys can see it. I'll add one over here. And I kind of just like put it in a circle, and that helps me get it in a circle without it like looking weird. And then I'll also like clean off the tip on my scrap paper. And then I'll put a third one just right here, right on the frame. And I try to do them different sizes so that they don't look super uniform. So there's my one. And then actually I'm gonna do a couple here. So I think, so if I do 3 down here, I like to do 2 up here. But I think I'm gonna do, I think I'll do one right here, just a little one right here on the frame. And again, just kind of circling it so that I don't leave like a weird tip. And I will come down here and I'll put like a really big one here. And I'm just, again, doing that to give it a little bit of variety. And then if I really wanted to, this one's probably one where I could add a third and it would look fine. But it'll just be a small one. So there you go. So now I've got my Nuvo drops. I feel like if I put 4 in a group, they look too like uniform. So that's why I usually stick with 3s or 2s. And usually if I do 3 down here, I'll do 2 up here. Or if I do 3 up here, I'll do 2 down there. But yeah, so that's kind of it for this card. I don't think you can really see it as well as I'd like, but this is like super strong green over here and then kind of like a light blue and a light pink. So I've got the pink glittery paper to kind of accent the pink right over there. So I'll take a picture after the stream so that everybody can see it and you can see how everything looks like in real life, where the camera doesn't really do it justice. But yeah, thanks, Rachel. I've been working a lot, and so I hadn't really had as much time to card make and do some of the things that I enjoy doing, but I decided to spend a little bit more time on this and spend a little bit less time doing some of the doing some of the hard work that I was doing previously. So I have a little bit more time on my hands to spend a little bit more time doing this. So it's been really great. And I hope you're doing well too. All right. So that is it for today's stream. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope everybody has a really, really amazing week. I hope you have a really great weekend. I'm going to be posting more tutorials. I'm also going to be posting a blog post just talking about the rule of thirds and how I use it for card making. So if you want to check that out, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter, and then you'll just get it in your inbox when the post is up and ready. But thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by. It's been really wonderful to spend the day with you, spend the evening with you. And I'm sorry I haven't been around too much lately, but I think you'll be seeing a lot more of me. And so I'm really excited about it. So please take care. And again, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at One Paper Street. I'm also on Pinterest, and www.onepaperstreet.com is my website with all my blog posts, my videos, and everything else. So I hope to see you around. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, Rachel. Take care, WikiWoo. Have a great day.